Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sedona International Film Festival. I'm Carol Kahn. We are coming to you live from Sedona Rouge Hotel, Spa, and Red's Restaurant, who is one of our sponsors for the festival, along with Broadcast Rentals and Sedona Advertising Agency. We want to thank our sponsors for participating in this year's festival. And I want to introduce you to Elias.
Elias, yeah.
Elias, and your film Silver Moon, which was wonderful.
Thank you.
I watched it, and I want to talk to you a little bit about it. So tell us about the premise of the movie.
So the story revolves around a man who has recently lost his wife. He's a retired astronomer, and he gets unceremoniously paired with an in-home caretaker, and they're at odds. But he's slowly declining into what we call a dementia wonderland, where he's envisioning meteorites crashing down upon him, and he's not entirely sure if it's real or if it's actually just the hallucinations within his head. And it's told through his perspective, where a lot of the dementia and Alzheimer's movies that I've seen were around the people, the family members, and the wives and all the people who have to deal with them. But this one, I wanted to tell a story through his perspective, and it was very much inspired by my grandma, who was going through similar situations at the time.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that. So let's take a look at the clip,
Okay.
and then let's talk more about it. It's watching the film, it was just heartbreaking too, because I know for you, I've read that this was actually based on your grandmother and your experience with dementia.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, during the time I was writing the script, my grandma was dealing with dementia, and she had recently moved into my parents' house. And so whenever I went back to Arizona, I'm from Los Angeles, whenever I went back, it was very... The stories that I've heard, and even just witnessing it firsthand, how my grandma was dealing with the dementia and kind of reclining what we call this wonderland, where she would go back to the days where she would be a ticket tearer. That used to be her job, but she'd be reclining into these past feelings and lives and emotions that she used to have, and she would just forget who I am, and it was very heartbreaking to me. But a lot of the memories from my grandpa passed away many years prior, and she just kept remembering him as well, which was really inspiring to me, but also heartbreaking. I wanted to pay homage and develop a short film that both reflected what she was going through and my sensibility as a filmmaker, writer in the world, in the landscape of science fiction.
But also, how did that affect you, seeing your grandmother like that? Because I think you mentioned at one particular point she didn't even remember who you were.
Right. I mean, that was the last time I ever spoke to her, and I was probably gonna cry right now, but no, it's okay. So I went home, and she was at the nursing facility at the time, and then I went, and she was a little bit in a daze, and I remember just saying hello, and then she looked up at me for a moment, and then she smiled and said hello and grabbed my hand, and that was the last time I ever spoke to her. And past then, she kind of disappeared, and I knew at that moment, I mean, it would be many months before she passed, but at that moment I knew I kind of lost her. And I know many people, friends, people I've just met, whose grandparents or parents are dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's a very it's a heartbreaking illness, and yeah, it was a heartbreaking time as well. So I wanted just to tell a story that kind of I could put my emotions into as well, you know.
So obviously you were not a filmmaker when you were going through this, but you were afterwards, or were you a filmmaker?
I actually, this is my second time at Sedona, so I studied filmmaking in college, but I was primarily I'm a writer in LA, so I was doing mostly writing at the time, and I wanted to kind of go back into directing. It's been years since I've done it, so this was kind of pushed me into the directing chair again, and it felt like a new endeavor, because I never worked with VFX or any of these loftier ambitions, but it was something that I'm very happy that I did, you know.
Yeah, and tell me about the actor, because he was very good in the piece.
He's fantastic. He's been in many things. Like, I mean, he has a face that you probably could recognize from a bunch of television shows, and I knew casting him. I didn't know who I was going to cast. We put a very wide net out. I just knew I wanted them to be a person of color, or a woman, like a Latino, anyone. You know, I just wanted to make sure that since he's an astronomer or she's an astronomer, I wanted them to be someone that's a little bit more marginalized and makes a little bit of their backstory a little bit more interesting. Because when you see the film, he gets paired with a caretaker who is kind of figuring out herself along the way too, and that's kind of their connection, is that they are a little misunderstood, but they reach a certain moment of a connection that I want them I want that to come across in that scene.
Right, and you had one more character in there, which we didn't really get to see.
Yes, yeah. During the time when he starts kind of thinking back to his wife, we were figuring out who should we cast as his wife, because you see her periodically throughout the film, and that's actually his real life wife. And she's fantastic. She's also a director and a filmmaker, and it was just kind of like a very close family on set. So it was really nice. And then the house that we shot at, that red truck, actually the owner of the house, that used to be his grandpa's truck. So it was a little bit of an homage to his grandpa too, who actually struggled with Alzheimer's. So it was a very, very good group of people working together.
Well, and through this film, you're a huge proponent now for dementia, correct?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I worked with a lot of like nurses and smaller groups that had a huge part in helping me kind of get the accuracy of the illness. And growing up, my first job ever was at a retirement community in Mesa, Arizona. So I identify and really connect with the elderly, because I think they have such great stories to tell, and it's just kind of a way to celebrate life in that way.
Right. So this is basically meant to be, I think.
Yeah, and I would love to continue telling stories that kind of shine a light on things like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm. And how can people find out about your film?
We're on Facebook, Silver Moon on Facebook, and we're going to be releasing it soon. We're in the festival circuit right now, but we're very happy to be here in Sedona. It's a great festival. Yeah.
Awesome. And has the film been shown yet, or are you getting?
This is the debut. We just started, so we're very excited to be here. It's again my second time back, so I love being in Arizona. I'm an Arizona native, and I'm excited to be here and come back in the future.
Well, we know we're going to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much for being with us. Thank
Carol.
you for presenting this film and being, such working with, the subject of dementia. So thank you so much for bringing that to all of our attention.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And we'll be back with more filmmakers after this.